We're
Here we
recording.
go.
Go.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike and Matt with M&M Exhibition Poultry Talking Chickens. Today we have a special guest again. It's Josh Trujillo. Am I right?
You
Oh,
got it.
yeah. He'll be Josh from now on because I got lucky on that one. We're going to talk everything crested fowl. And we're looking forward to this. And I know we've had a lot of comments of people looking forward to it. Uh, Matt and I have had Crested for 50 years off and on, kind of a love hate thing. Always admired him. We go back to the days of Lenny Brenneman and Rick Poor and Jones and Ross and oh good lord, the guy from Canada. I can't remember his name right offhand. Matt.
Russell Smith.
Russell Smith.
Yeah, Russell had buff Polish Bantams. But my one of my first breeds of Bantams in 1974 were mottled Houdan Bantams.
Really?
I got them from Harry Halbach, and Harry sent two females. And I said I need a male, and he said, "Ah, the female's lay. We'll get you a male later." So that was my introduction, and then I can't tell you how many times that Rick Poor, when Brittany was born, our oldest, he would give me pairs or trios of bearded whites, and we'd have them for 2 or 3 years, and I never could get anything out of them. I never paid as much attention to them because they're Brittany's, but we'd have a lot of fun and always liked them. So yeah, so that was my experience, and then between Matt and I, we've had them off and on again several times. Like I say, that's a true love hate relationship.
Oh, I agree
Love a good
100%.
love a good one. The other ones make me want to knock my head against the wall. I just can't figure it out. Love the large ball too. I really like them, especially if they're not absolutely nuts. Uh, and then we grew up with Barb Piper and her large model Houdans, and in my mind, there were never any ever better than hers. Her females. The males were necessary evil, as she would call them, but those females, holy moly, they were just and they were so calm and
Yeah,
kind. And I,
hers were
yeah,
unusually calm. Uh,
yeah,
I
because ever since then we've searched to find anything that's calm at all. Hadn't happened in
there
large fowl, especially.
there was an old guy up in Wisconsin. His name was Thane Earl, and he kind of had a
Yeah,
he was kind of like a hatchery. You could order chicks from him, but he had a little bit of everything. And Dorkings was his big thing. But I had got some from him, and he supplied the eggs back then to Murray McMurray, and they were a different bird than what you see now. They were a real long Dorking looking bird, real heavy bodied, vicious as all gets out, but wide bird. I mean, they were as white as an Orpington, just a whole different monster than what I seen later on. It's just a real. I guess it would be a more of a dual purpose, body. They could eat them or they would lay. And I had a few of those for a few years. But we'll let you go, Josh. Tell us what you got now. And
yep.
Well, right now my latest project is the Houdan Bantams. Um, I honestly didn't even think they existed up until a few years ago. I was at work. Uh, Josh Hoffman actually reached out at an auction, came across a trio and a pair. Uh, Timing couldn't have been better. I had just started thinning out the flock of the bearded whites and the white crested blacks because I wasn't happy with the laced Polish variety. So originally I had plans to get into the laced Polish again. Those were my original variety, silvers and goldens. Uh, didn't work out that way. I couldn't pass up the opportunity, and I jumped. He sent me a message. I jumped, and long story short, we've done some crosses. When we got them, we joked around and called them our flock of walking DQs. They had just about everything wrong with them, defects and all. If it was listed in the standard, they had it. Yeah, they were pretty rough, but we now we joke that we'll pick Houdan over Polish any day.
Yep.
Um, Super easy to raise. Females, you can go scoop them up, no issues. Males are temperamental,
Yep.
uh, very intelligent. Um, those Bantams will lay every day, just about. Right now, the biggest issue I'm having is the tails. Tails are squirrel, very high tail. Um, and originally when I got them, they were big. They were big girls compared to the Polish. My
Right.
whites, I had them down to about the size of a pigeon, so I kind of overdid it with my scale and Bantamania. Um, so when we got these Houdans, they were big girls, and right away we started working on decreasing the size, and I realized that that wasn't the way right away that we wanted to go because we lost egg size. And that's what everyone that I've given them away to fell in love with was the eggs. Every day we were getting eggs. So that's something we're playing around with, trying to get back, breeding them a little bit bigger. Biggest issue is the pattern. That pattern is rough,
Yeah,
but
it's a tough. Very.
I enjoy it though. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a
I know.
tough one.
Model's not for the faint of heart.
No, and that's why I played around with, and I'm still working on them. I know I talked to Matt. What was it last weekend?
Yeah, I believe
Uh,
so.
I started creating a line of whites, just in case the modeled pattern drove me crazy. I decided let's go all out, make whites, and we're cleaning those up. But those are fun too. Still favor the Polish side of things, but they're a work in progress. I mean, I see myself eventually going more the white route. Um, and then the Bantam Houdans, we're just now spreading them around. We're happy enough with them to get them into other people's hands. People who are traveling all over to the poultry shows. That's something that I don't do. Being in Texas, I think I maybe go to one or two shows a year or every other year.
Right.
Um, and really, it's more the distance. Going 3, 4, 5 hours. For
Yeah,
me,
you can't even get out of Texas.
that too. Um, but that's where we're at now. We're playing with the Houdans. We have white crested chocolates. We picked those up about 6 years ago. I'm going to say that was one of the last things that Kathy sent us from Ohio.
Hmm.
Some of her white crested chocolates, sort of a farewell type gift. We got them, and we're happy with them now enough to. Uh, we're starting to play around with the khakis a little bit more, white crested khaki. Um, and then of course we have the white crested blacks. Um, didn't plan to get back into those anytime soon, but my breeding partner just retired his flock, and he loved the Houdan so much. It was kind of hey, come get them if you want them. If not, they're going to whoever comes to the door first. And we
Hmm.
went down and picked up a few pairs. So we're playing around with them, trying to spread them around a little bit.
Good deal. I see on your list that you sent, you was talking about one of the worst things with Polish and crested breeds is mites and lice in the crest, beards, and everywhere else. So we had a section last time we were on with Jeff because Martin's flea and frontline have been discontinued. So that ingredient, that fibronel in them, has been banned evidently. So we've been looking for something else to use. But you can maybe fill us in on what you do for crust mites and lice and those good little critters.
Well, we were actually, uh, we were sold on Martins. It was the best thing in a long time, I guess, since Frontline. But then the mites got used to it, so we do keep other things in the rotation. Seven Dust, uh, not so much directly on the birds, but in the coops with the shavings. Um, we have a few bottles of Adam's flea spray. We use Garden Raid. I think that's an old tip from the
That's what
Brenneman.
Rick Poor. That's what Rick Poor used. What was Raid Lawn and Garden or House and Garden, where they called it? And he just and their combs and
Hmm.
squirt under the tail, and away we go.
We use Raid still. The green can, unscented.
Yes, yes,
Um,
we can.
every once in a great while, I'll get a bird that reacts to it. But for the most part, that it gets the job done.
I've been
Um,
I've been reading some stuff, and it's kind of got off the rail on it, but there's a tablet that they make for the pigeons. Fancy, it's Ivamec based, and it's got something else in it too. But these people claim they've used it on chickens that is perfect for that. And I know if you can get the Ivamec in the bloodstream, that'll pretty much nail whatever you get on them. But here was the claim they were making that it cured Marek's disease. That if you give a bird that that's starting to show symptoms, and they had some pictures. So, and how you take stuff on the internet, I kind of wonder. But I've seen this at the pigeon shows, and I'm going to buy a bottle of it just for chuckles to give it a whirl this year if I have it pop back up on Merrick's. But I haven't ever used straight Ivamec for lice and mites because I don't think it. I liked Frontline and Martin's because it got them right now, and I think with Ivamec it must take a little while. And sometimes by the time we find those, we have northern fowl mites up here, and usually when you get them, their bird is pretty well shot, or they're run down, and you can when you get the time to spray them, then you realize, oh my God, I should have got to him quicker. Especially bad in white birds, white leghorns, white chanticleers, white cochins. Seems like they go to a white bird for some reason, but yeah, we're waiting. Caitlin and Tim are at Rogers are working on a new product that they're going to carry, but they're testing it right now. I don't know. Have you heard anything, Mike?
No, I haven't heard anything back lately from her since she told me that they were in the works, and evidently it wasn't available in a small
Okay.
enough quantity. I mean, for so it's this bulk thing. That was what I gathered from it. So, but I know they're working on it, and maybe by the time another month or so, I'll see, and
Well, they're
maybe by the
they're
time they
gonna
show up,
they're gonna be at Tri-State, so
yep,
we might have to do a little live feed up there or something, and talk to them about it, and stick it
right,
on here. But yeah, that
yeah.
was my two things. Like we use Seven Dust for years, and you're right. It seems like they get immune to it. I haven't seen that with Martins. I have.
See, I agree. When it first came out, uh, for the first time in a long time, we discontinued because we used to do weekly crest checks.
Yep.
We would go through, give them the rundown. Do they have crest feathers growing into the eyes? Don't want that. Irritation could cause infection or blindness, and then give them a quick rundown for the mites. And Martins came out, and it gave us a good 2 years.
Yeah.
And right away, we realized something wasn't right. They changed it because we started getting mites again.
Yeah, they
Uh,
did change the formula. They took that fibronil out. I don't know what that we found out. I found out during research that's a big pesticide for the termite industry, and they make it in a concentrated bottle. But you can't. I mean, I don't know how you'd ever dilute it down, and with how they did it, because they was a real low concentration of fibronil. But I guess that stuff's death on termites. And when they banned it, that's who raised hell was the termite guys, and they ended up making this concentrated version of it. But Adams was great years ago when it was oil based, and when they went to the water based, it just don't stay. So it didn't have that residual that Martin's, I think, is alcohol based, and Frontline's an alcohol based, but it tends to stay on the bird. Like you said, about every 3 months I would check them and hit them, but you didn't have to worry about anything in that 3 month time frame. So hopefully we get something new. I'm sure they got the technology out there, and I'm going to mess with this Ivamec and try it on a few of them that get them just to see how long it takes to kill them off and if it actually works. And we're going to do the Merrick's test because Ivamec cures COVID and everything else. I think it cures everything, but a bad checkbook. the way they talk on the internet. So um, we'll see. I guess is the thing. If it cures Merrick's, then there's some miracle stuff in Ivomec. Then it's all I can say.
And see, and
So,
for us, the humidity and the heat is so bad. I mean, it's breeding
Yeah.
ground for mites, 110 degrees, and
oh yeah, and I found years ago with Keith Bramwell, Dr. Bramwell from the University of Arkansas, the biggest vector for those northern fowl mites is mice. And I find dead mice because I keep poison out all the time. I find dead mice in the barn, and they'll be covered in mice. And I thought, well, I'll be damned because there's no wild birds in there. There's nowhere they're getting them from there. There's no wood in there, so they're not getting it from burrowing in the wood. Well, here those mice are bringing them. They get in bird nests or whatever, and then they get these mites, and then they drag them everywhere else. So that is the number one vector for mites, and I don't know about lice, but I know mites is mice and rodents.
see, and sometimes it'll, because again, Martin's was our miracle cure for a bit. Sometimes if it gets bad enough, we'll just turn everybody loose for the day, maybe two, and we'll just close everything up and throw those raid bombs
Oh, in the coops, yeah.
to get in all the cracks and roosts.
Yeah.
And we'll have to do that a few times. It's a little extreme, but with Polish, I mean, you kind of have to be.
Yeah, you're going to
Yeah,
always find.
they're a little extreme themselves. So some of the measures to have them, you got to be a little more extreme
And
if
then
you
one of the
want good.
latest things we added into the rotation was the I think it's a Lecter PSP.
Yeah,
So
I've seen
that's
that.
the latest in the rotation. That we use more in the coop. Give like the raid bomb, give it a good couple of hours, half day to dry out, and then we'll lay out the 7 duster shavings again before we put the birds back in. And because we keep a variety of these mite treatments on hand, Polish eggs we just don't touch. We don't eat the Polish eggs.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the big thing with off-use stuff is if I don't think the Ivomec would kill you, it'd probably worm you, but some of that other stuff I don't know. The fibronel I was always kind of worried about, but um, it never seemed. When we first come out with Frontline, people had some fertility issues, but you don't spray it right in the vent, and I think that probably didn't feel real good. And I think that was the problem. You usually got to go above or below, and not right in it. And uh, the two that I had that complained about it, that was what they were doing. They were spraying it right in their vent. I thought, no, not that. And
ouch.
so, yeah. So, after that, I don't. We eat the eggs. I don't. It never killed us. So, or it hasn't yet.
See, in the Houdans, it's a different story. They're we call them the farm chickens. We just turn them loose, and
They dust probably.
that's it. They'll dust themselves, and every now and then, if they do get mites, we'll just give them a quick spurt of Martin or Raid, and that gets the job done.
And a little
Uh,
tougher bird. Where Polish is, Mike and I always call them stupid, because either they're crazy or they just stand there. So I think the Polish don't have the. I think if you put Polish out in the field in a couple of days, you wouldn't have any birds left. I don't know that I could say the same thing about Houdans. They would survive if they had to get in the trees. They're
oh,
pretty. I don't.
I agree. The Polish, it sounds funny. I can turn them loose in the backyard, and my yard isn't very big. I'm maybe 10 minutes from the Riverwalk in San Antonio, and I've had birds. They'll just disappear. They'll get lost, and if I'm not constantly on them,
Yep.
they'll walk away. Where the Houdans, they're pretty savvy.
Yeah, they're more chicken and not a truly ornamental toy. All right, Mike, what else you got? You got some other questions for Josh? One thing I could talk about since we're only 20 minutes in is you're the internet poultry historian, which is kind of after my own hobby in the day. So I collect old things, and you do too. And I know you've gotten a lot of the old Crested stuff from years ago. Even some of them guys like the bronze and stuff. I don't remember them. I remember hearing about them and the Criners and the old stringmen from Pennsylvania. They in New York, they were like the Polish kings in the day.
See, and For me, I how I ended up in the history part of poultry was growing up. All I would hear from these old guys at the shows is how everything was inbred or related. Um, we're SOL eventually if we don't find new blood is what I would hear. Um, so me, it was just, well, how did the originals come about? Where did they
Yep.
come from? And so that's where it sort of took off. Um, and along the way, we started picking up bits and pieces of other breeds, and we just share it. I mean, it does us no good, but it'll help others, I'm sure. I can just about trace every white crested Bantam today back to the original Brenneman stock. Everyone wants to know how they're related. They all today come from Brenneman.
Actually, if you go back to all the laced and say there's more than
Yeah.
just white crested blacks. Almost, other than Grubel, Mike, do you remember anybody else that had laced? Russell Smith, but I think his were all large fowl. His were all buffalo.
Yeah, Gordon Riddler.
Yeah, Gordon Riddler
Gordon
had.
Riddler. That in Canada he did. But no, it all about goes back to Brenneman and Grubel.
Good ones. I
Um,
mean, the only good ones. I mean, and that's might be stretching the term because they weren't, to the white crested black level. But the only good ones I seen were either Grubel or Brenneman. And Grubel's birds were like, you don't look at them now. Take them home and raise some out of them, and because he was not the conditioner that
no, no, God, no,
Brenneman was a
no.
conditioner, and so was Rick Polar. I mean, they had a whole science to that part of it. And with Polish, it's a daily thing. And I know Rick spent a lot of time. Mike's been there. What was that? Rick and Karen's house a couple times, and yeah, that was his thing. So actually, when he
But
had other breeds, he ruined them because he made his Leghorns and Wyandottes too tame. They wouldn't even show.
he had. I remember a golden laced Polish hen that had on Champion Row at Columbus.
Brenneman,
No, Rick
Rick.
for AOCCL, and I remember when they come to pick champion a show, she sat there at the bottom of that cage and just talked. She never stood up. She didn't care for anything. And he would get his leghorns. He had beautiful white leghorns. And these pullets would be fantastic. They'd go to sleep in the middle of a thunderstorm. I mean, you couldn't rile them up, and well, hell, half the time they didn't show. They just
Yep.
and he had choice words. He was very colorful. I
His wife.
loved Rick. I
I always
missed him so
I
much.
always cringe judging his white Polish because they looked really good for that 2 minutes you were messing with them, and as soon as you got done, they go over there to lay in the corner, and
Yeah.
so I guess that was their downside is they just didn't show enough. Um, and a lot of Polish are that way. I see white crested blacks all the time in the show hall that they look really good when I handle it and everything else, and I get it back in the cage, and I cannot get the bird to pose or go to station or do a thing
Nope.
other than fight me to get in the cage or get out of the cage, and so that's an issue. With I think any Polish breeder also has to do a little cage training um, to get
See,
them
in
to
our
go.
see ours, that's one thing we select for their ornamentals. They have to show themselves.
Yep.
So personality, if they don't have it, they have to go. We'll turn
Yeah.
everybody loose. If it's natural, they want to throw that tail up and strut their stuff. They may be a keeper, and then we'll play around and see if
And I'm sure that's not a trait that most people are selecting for. So, um,
no. And originally, ours would just sort of sit there. I don't know what happened there, but Kathy would send males down every about 4 or 5 years to give us new blood, and somehow we got that one male where you did not want to walk in that
yeah,
coop or stick your hand in the cage, and those males turn the flock around.
I probably judged Kathy's birds a bunch of in the I guess the early 2000s up until when she had to give it up. But she always loved me to judge them because Matt, you look at them. because everybody else would grab them in, chunk them back in, and that's a Polish. And I always looked at them, went over them real well from having Polish, and her birds were always very well cage trained and conditioned, and some of the odd colors that she had at the time because I knew she worked with the guy out. Jesus, my his name slips me, but
Westling, was it?
Westling Al, her and Al were good friends and working on those oddball colors at the time. I know the white crested cuckoos and the chocolates and all those things were stuff that Al created, but she was always very nice and always very appreciative. I don't think I ever heard Kathy complain about a thing. And there
No.
was some times when she got hosed. She should have won and didn't or whatever. And she was always very gracious. And I miss her because she was always a pleasant person to see. Always
Yep.
spoke, always come up and talk to you.
I never will forget. It's the first time I judged Central Indiana, and I don't know if you judged Jeff, me. There's a bunch of us, of course, and I had the AOCCL, so they come down through the Polish, and she had this pullet. I think it was a pullet, and I went, oh. So I go back through, and so I make her champion AOCCL, and I remember Hallback say, "What do you got, Mikey?" And I said, "I got a white crusted black Polish." And he said, "Radio CCL?" I said, "Yep." He said, "Well, let's go look at her." We looked and he went, "Damn, that's really a good Polish." I said, "Yes, it is." And I believe she is championing a show. And I think maybe so through it, I'm pretty sure she was champion Bantam champion. She was wonderful. And Kathy, I mean, she was quite a bit older than us, but she was the most appreciative, the nicest. And then she said the same thing. I saw you messing with her. I said, well, she's a hell of a chicken. But why wouldn't you take the time? And you didn't have to do much. When you got her out and put her back in, she would pose. And then, and then they can't see you. They gotta forget you there. But she did the right things. Yeah, but she was a very nice person and a really good breeder. And I wanted to get to that when you were talking about getting your personalities in, and why we don't see that very much is because you don't show much, Josh, for different reasons. You breed Polish because you like Polish or Hudans. You like crested birds. So your main interest is getting them as good as you can get them and getting everything that's supposed to be there. Where a lot of times in the day and age we're in now, and nothing against it because I like great big chicken shows, people don't care. They would like to have it, but they're not going to spend the time to put that trade in. Go, well, it gets by, we won. Okay, but it could be stance, personality. Maybe you should have a little yellower color in your white coach and male birds. They shouldn't be white skinned. I know that, but I mean, so if the judges overlook things, then the exhibitors overlook things. When the exact point should be the exhibitors should never overlook things and not take the judge's opinion as gospel. You're
See,
the
and it
breeder. It's your job. That's your life.
100% yes.
Yep.
See, and that's something that we were talking about last week too. Is we got comfortable with our flock. We entered a white crested black at the South Texas Classic Winter Show, and one of the judges placed our white crested black cockerel, as what it was, reserve AOCCL. Uh, I went through him, make sure the little things were okay, stubs, uh, plucking here and there around the eyes, and my breeding partner Glenn Crocker, same thing. Another friend of ours, old Polish breeder Ron Matheny, same thing, went through the bird, and not one of us caught the beak. The beak was curved,
Oh,
and
really?
it was, and it was a fun experience. It was very eye opening and educational. You know, it was one of those, hey, we're slacking.
Yeah.
Um, and the judge caught it, and so it was just kind of you know, back to the drawing board. We're doing something wrong.
Yeah,
we got,
Yeah.
yeah.
that's a good example of a Polish judge or a silky judge or whatever. So you have such a large concentration of points in that head, and you have to spend some time. And I learned that from Harry. You got to spend some time looking at that crest, looking at the eyes, looking at the cavernous nostrils. Years ago we required a vaulted crest, and now we went to a globular crest. So, you got to look at all those things. That's probably my biggest complaint in Polish anymore is we don't have a globular crest. But
Mm-mm.
it's like we're having a contest to see how big we can get the crest, and then we forget about the whole rest of the bird. Yeah, that's a big chunk of it, but it's also the big chunk of it that makes our impression on that bird when we're judging it. So if it doesn't have the correct crest, then I'm done. If I see stuff hanging down, or sometimes the males anymore get real stringy, long sex feathers, which is from breeding, not breeding for width of feather. Um, so those are things that kind of my pet peeves. So you always see me pulling the feathers back, looking at the eyes, looking at the nostrils, looking at the beak. So a good Polish judge is going to catch that. Where if somebody's probably not their specialty, um, my dogs are having a fit upstairs. If it's not their specialty, they kind of just go on by it. And I ain't saying I haven't done that in some breeds that are probably not my forte or my great interest, but I tend to on Polish. I tend to get real picky and look at them. So
See, and
that's
for
my
us, it was embarrassing. It was a little funny too because that's always been our whole thing.
yeah.
Look past the crest, and
Oh, you're talking to the king. I've raised Chanticleers now for quite a few years, and I have this pullet that's just a knockout, and it's a double show, first show, disqualified for stubs. I had never had stubs in a Chanticleer ever, never even looked. And Nate Reinish, he found them. I thought, I'll be damned. They didn't have them in the second show, but they had them in the first show. And so now I look at them all the time because evidently there's stubs in there somewhere, but I guess I never had them. So I never, and until it comes to the forefront, you sometimes don't pay attention to that stuff.
Yep. So tell us, Josh, are there any? Well, we're not. I guess you can't name names, but are there any laced Polish out there anywhere that actually look like a Polish and have correct color at all that you've seen?
there's some. I think people realize that hey, these birds are disappearing, and for me, it made me happy that people were starting to pick these birds up again. Not only because of the rarity, but to really test their skill to get that lacing,
Yes.
and
Yep.
I'm just eyeballing a few flocks. It may be something we get into later. But there are a few. There's some
Good.
up and coming bantams, and I think um, large fowl. The the only variety that I know that are halfway decent laced wise is buff.
Yeah.
Silvers and
Yeah.
golds. They're
Yeah,
yeah,
we
pretty
found
much
that too.
common.
We had some pretty nice buffs,
I
and you
actually
can
got
find
some
them.
nice buffs out of frizzles. The lady over in Maryland had these gorgeous buff lace frizzles, and I bought some just for the heck of it. But they threw as good a buff lace Polish bantams. They were a little on the big side, but I mean, as far as type and crest and color, I don't think I've seen any. And I wished I wouldn't have let them go over the years, but I did. And I haven't seen any since that come close to that. I know Larry Denny down in Missouri, I believe, has got several colors, and he sells a lot of hatching eggs. And I've seen some decent birds come out of that. And Dick Hortzman was selling golden laced, golden Polish bantams that come out of Grubel's old stuff, and some of them aren't bad. I've seen some of them after they've grown up. So I mean, there's a couple out there, but boy, there's not many.
Mm-mm.
You don't see them
There,
in the
there's a
shows hardly at all.
no, there's a few in Alabama too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
they're
I
there.
know.
They just don't show them much, but they're there.
I think Larry's in Alabama. I had Got him wrong. Larry Glenn's in
Yep.
Alabama.
See, and that's where our
Yep.
originals come from. Glenn Crocker out in San Antonio, real good friend, and Larry Glenn. He was the one that sent us the silvers and gold eggs and birds. I'm going to
Mhm.
say.
Yeah,
Um,
we missed Glenn Cryer because Glenn had them too, and I don't know if Keith kept the laced varieties going. I don't know what he's got anymore.
He's got the whites. He's got last. Well, it's probably been 18 months ago. He had a bearded white female that was outstanding, and that bitch would not stand up. When I took her up front, it was like, ah, I
Yep,
mean, you're there, and I was judging with Tom Carey. He said, that's a whole female. I said, I know, but she won't do anything. It was just, bleh. But man, she was, I mean, and small. I mean, she was, it took me back to the Rick Four days I mean, she fit the cage, had a beautiful crest, everything in proportion, and just lay down. I mean, lay completely down. You'd pick her up, set her back down, she'd go, rip, then she'd talk to you. But yeah, she
see,
was
and
wonderful.
I didn't even know he had the whites until we were putting together the what Jeff gave the breeding and showing crested
Hmm.
breeds. I had no idea he even owned whites. And
And
they're
good
nice.
ones too. Yeah,
I
they're
yeah.
nice.
And I knew
They're
he had
real
white
nice.
crested blacks, but when we started
Hmm.
putting everything together, it was just like, wow.
he's
Um,
Yep.
a wealth of knowledge. Keith's a nice guy. He's one of my favorite people to talk to because he's
Yep.
real quiet, but he knows a lot. And he had champion Bantam at a show I judged down in Dalton, Georgia, on a rose comb white leghorn of all things. And we have rose comb white leghorn, so she was a nice bird. And you can almost bet I can always tell Keith's birds because they're always in immaculate condition. So he's always got them all in, or he wouldn't bring them. So
Yeah.
everything that was, well, he's got several breeds, but they're all in good condition. One thing we talked about last week, I was going to bring up too, Josh. So we have this Craigavacor thing going on, and I know on the Bantam side, I remember them from years ago, and they had red lobes. They were a different bird. They probably were poorly crested, I would say. So they didn't have the Polish crest that we see on them now, and it was a different bird. And Dwayne Urch and some of those guys, Thane Earl, Mike, they had the large fowl. If you remember back
Yep.
then, never very. I guess they were never very good. They were. You could say that was a Crevacore, but they always looked to me like they were just one step ahead of a La Fletch. They just they just had that look to them. But we were talking about black Polish, so I know there's black Polish bantams, and I think most of what I've seen in the bantam side of it, I won't say that on the large fowl side because I've seen some pretty decent large fowl. But the bantams I think are just black Polish. They have a Polish crest. They look like a black Polish to me.
and
And
that
they got white lobes.
you know, and
Yep,
that's
they got the
something that Brenneman touched base on back in the '60s. Is you cannot make Bantam crevacore using the large fowl for the simple fact is they have white lobes. Uh, you know, I may tackle them in the future. Right now, Houdans keep me busy. I know Kathy had them. I think Nate Reinish mentioned he had seen them. He's probably one of the only other people aside from Glenn that remembers her crevacore bantams.
I don't
Um,
remember her having them, but Doc Patterson was the last person I ever remember having them, and he got them out of I think it was Ogden's out of Missouri or one of those people that had them. They run them in their string. Even John Wunderlich had them for a while, didn't he, Mike? He was selling
Yeah.
cream cores.
Yeah.
They kind of go hot and cold, but
Oh, well, Grubel had them.
yeah, Grubel had them. Grubel made them, I
Right?
think.
Grubel had everything. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but what I'm seeing presented, and the problem with some of this stuff is people get in it and they think they got something that nobody else has, and so now it's automatically a rare. Let's charge a lot of money for it, but unlike you, they don't know the history of all this, and yeah, let's change them to white lows. Well, let's not because that's not the way they were originally. I mean, Brenneman was on the standard committee when that Bantam standard come out. So if they were supposed to have white lobes, wouldn't you think that they would have them? He would have done it then. So just it's one of those debates that I think they're not going to win it on the internet. They should
See,
just
and
shut up.
I don't raise them, so for me it's kind of maybe if I had them, then I'd probably be on team. Let's change the standard. I'm not. I'll cross if I need to. I mean, it sounds crazy. My Houdans, I've added Polish in the mix.
Oh yeah.
They had they've
None of
had
it's pure. We can tell you. I've done some things over the years, and everybody just shakes their head. But yeah, you got to. You're breeding for a phenotype, and it's not pedigreed, so nobody knows. And that's the problem with most of this stuff when we put it together. Unless you're really good and had them for a while, you don't know what's behind them. They could have anything, and I think we were talking about that with white. What we found over the years with white is white will pretty much eventually cover up it all. So what it's hiding is what you got to worry about, and that's
yeah.
where you have to test mate to find out.
See, and one of the things that I know we were talking about Wagner when we're messaging back and forth that he did that I don't is he keeps all his chicks. Color and the crest are not, the white crested blacks. Um, so it was interesting, Jeff actually asked, how do you cull from the incubator, Josh? Is it something that I do being in the city? I cannot afford to hatch 100, keep all 100, and
Yep.
neighbor making a complaint. Where he, from my understanding, is in the country, so he has the room to really see what they're going to be. Anything with any color markings in the crest, I cull. If it doesn't have a white crest from the hatch, I don't have time to raise it a year or two and pluck 3, 4, 5 times and hope that that black might come out. I don't want to raise a bird where I'm having to pluck
Yeah, do all that
constantly.
work.
I
Yep.
want them to be as natural as possible. Another thing that I think is interesting is the vaults, the crest. Not a lot of people realize that the skull is like a newborn baby. It takes time for the skull to develop.
Yep.
And so when people throw their chicks together and mix them up, most people assume, oh, it's pecking order. They're going to get bullied. You don't want to mix for that reason. Well, that's a good reason, but with these other breeds, if you have a chick with a skull that's not fully developed, it's all it takes is one peck and in
It's
the right
done.
spot, and you've got a head that's bobbing.
Yeah.
Uh, so I call hard. I call from the incubator. I try not to mix. If I mix anything, it's other colors with the white crested blacks because they're really bad at crest picking. I try to thin out the white crested black chicks. If I have a dozen, they'll be okay 1 minute. I go back and they're already pecking each other.
I
Mhm.
noticed. I noticed that with the whites when I had them, they were bad for that. When especially if they got a little crowded, they'll tear each other up.
See, and I'm trying to think the proper name for the head wobble, cerebral hernia. Sorry, it took me a while. I'm like, what is it? Um, but yeah, I call from the incubator. I know Wagner mentioned he keeps everything. But if I hatch 125 come out with black blotches in the head, I've got 75. 2, 3 months later, I can cull again, get rid of the cockerels. Say I'm down to 30 pullets. If they decide to peck on each other or don't have that personality, boom, we're down to an easy top 10, and we can keep that cycle going for at least 3, 4 years is pushing it, and then we'll have an off year where we'll raise cockerels, and then we'll start looking into replacing the males. We try to keep 2, maybe 3 males, and we'll just keep them in rotation for the next few years before we have
You'll
to replace
you'll
them.
have to use the old Louis Straight rule. And I never forgot this because you'd had to known Louis. He was in his 80s back then, but just as sharp as a tack. And somebody wanted to he raised large fowl white Cornish and very good ones. and somebody wanted to buy one, and he only had 5 males, and he says you have to keep 5 males. He goes, two won't be fertile, one will die, and that'll leave you two to breed from. So in the back of my mind, on everything I have, I always have 5 males, whether it's cockerels or cockbirds, but because that's in my head that two's going to die, only one won't be fertile, and that leaves you two to breed from. So
Well, now that
you
my breeding partner's out of it, we're pushing it.
yeah, and you can get in the bind. I have done that with male birds. The white cochins, we had Merricks go get in them after they got a little older, and we had no males left. We had to go get some. So yeah, you can get yourself. Now I tend to keep more than I probably need, but just for that reasons, I've got males out there that I've never bred from, but I still have them. So
I got 9. Got
yeah,
9 white males.
which is light for you.
Yeah, I usually carry 15 males.
I'm going to say
I
I
might
have at
only keep
least.
I might only keep 15 females, but I'll have 15 males and maybe use 2 or 3 of them. But predominantly, our strain uh, throws really good male birds. So I could be breeding and have 2 or 3 more. And if we do get to show, like this year's been a total cluster between the AI and the weather at different shows. And I mean, we haven't done shit.
Mm-mm.
But
Yeah,
usually I can go ahead and I could still show 2 cocks, 2 cockerels, and never ever have to take anything I'm breeding from.
yeah,
So
that's a
that's
nice
why I
thing.
keep more of them. It's a luxury, and I got the room. You know, also I've got now are black, white, buff, and a few brown, red coaching bantams, and then my big blacks. But I don't have it. This is the first time I can remember. I don't have Old English anywhere. I don't have Polish. I don't have anything else running here. So it in one way it gets kind of boring, but in another way it's neat because I can keep more things that I kind of want to try. I got the space now. I don't have to hatch 400 chicks because I've got 5 breeds and 9 colors and so I can hatch like this year. I think we got 50 to 75 black coaching bantams. I haven't raised that many in 20 years, but I
See, and,
could. They were
and it,
fertile.
it keeps me focused. That's for sure.
Yep.
When I'm
Oh
working
yeah.
with 4 or 5, I think at one time I had 15 males. My
Yeah, keep
neighbors
you
didn't
focused.
say anything.
Yeah.
Other
I
than when they
laugh.
wanted chickens, we'd
Eggs.
send them chickens.
I
Yeah.
laugh. It was a
Exactly.
bit odd. 3 or 4 years ago, we had a pretty good run with the white cochins, and somebody made the comment, "I'm going to beat that male of yours." I said, "Well, which one?" I said, "We showed it 8 shows, and we showed 8 different males. We never showed the same one because they never stayed in condition. So that although it looked like the same bird, it wasn't the same bird. I don't think we had the same bird that year win twice. It was always a
Yeah.
different
So,
bird."
but it makes it nice when because there'll be years, or there've been several years. Matt and I have judged. We've been to 20 shows, but we get to maybe we'll show one because we've judged 19 of them. So you got to have something that keeps you going, even though you're not. And then there's other years, we'll show 5 or 6 times. That's a big year.
Yep, that's a good year.
We're at a shitload of shows, but I mean, that's a different kind of thing too. So the way you're doing things, so I'm getting to with your Polish, and the way that we do it, the coaches and the Chanticleers, you got to really like them. I mean, you got to get to where in your mind, if I don't show, it's okay. I'm going to make this better, and here's what I'm going to do. And if it doesn't work, well, you know what? You're out. You're not going to do that again. Shit can it and go on, and you try the next thing. But to do something and see even that smallest improvement, that's great satisfaction. That's actually more. I mean, it's great if you find that improvement and you take it and you win a show. But even if in your mind you know your bird's better than anybody else. I think that's what makes people that stick and dedicate.
See, and for
It's
me,
not.
it's how we survive. I have to know my flock.
Yes,
Otherwise, numbers are not on my side. Where other people, numbers is what you need. Houdans, when we first got them, first thing I noticed when we were hatching is they came out 6 different patterns. Uh,
Hmm.
they were modeled, but some had the almost silver stripe down the back. Patterns were broken. So I made it a priority, to understand what these
what they grow
patterns
into.
'What they
100%. Yep,
mean? Yep.
I needed to. And it's funny because I think it was Reverend, was it Peterson, 150 years ago. I find out he did the same thing. So here I am, had no idea someone did it over a century before me, and so it's just like, okay, good. Here's confirmation that that this is
Yeah.
100% correct. So now we're culling harder, and the plan this year is I'm hoping to at least get reserve AOCCL with the Houdan. Um,
That'd be
you know,
nice.
that's what we're shooting for. We'll see.
You're talking about the old breeders and reading through all the history, and I've done that forever. I've given away so much, many books and things, but Matt and I have both done it. What I always remember is back then these people actually made a living and supported their family with chickens, not laying chickens, chickens, show poultry. So their attention to detail and their experiments and what they paid attention, I think a lot. And I like to read that, and that helps you think, well, I'm not taking too much time. This is important to me because in your little corner, that's where you need to be. And with you and the books and the history, I mean, I read over that shit 3 or 4 times. I'll read it and 5 years later think, wait a minute, I know something about that, and go get it and read it again. I think that's one of the great, other than just having the internet where you could ask all the experts.
Yeah, I try not to look online for answers.
No, none,
I stick to
none.
the books.
Yes, yeah, yeah. If I need an answer from someone that's online, it's because I know them, and I message them and say, "Hey, do you remember? Is this what happened? Is this what we did?" Well, then, yeah, but I'll take that. Okay, because I thought so. But yeah, I'm not reading. No, I'm not
Sometimes
reading
I
chicken chat.
sometimes I find that all entertaining. I used to go to
Yeah,
backyard chickens all the time just for amusement. I didn't participate much, but I think I got kicked out. That's probably why I didn't participate much. But
yeah.
yeah, there's some things you see, and God help it. I got the internet's about 50-50 in my mind, so you just got to be able to glean it out.
I don't
Why do you?
even. I mean, it's helpful, but I try not to. I stick to his history. I would look up
Yeah,
the old Crested articles. I'll dig through the old poultry world.
yep,
My answers are there. I just have to dig.
It's a shame
yep.
we don't
I
have
agree.
like a index of the articles in the poultry press because in the day, even when we first started, that's where all the good articles were. So they were written by the people breeding them at the time, usually the ones that won. And back then, people actually wrote articles because we didn't have all this, instant communication. So it kind of that's the downside to a lot of the new stuff. But even then, the problem was a lot of good breeders didn't write articles, and so that the information was lost. So you're getting the information from those that could write and wanted to preserve it for posterity. But boy, there's a lot of good people I knew that could raise chickens that couldn't write shit, and they just
Nope.
didn't. So that either they passed it on verbally or it just died when they did. So and then that's
I think
happened in more than one breed.
I think the what was it, the APA yearbook covered Kreiner. Not that he couldn't, he just wouldn't. He was too busy to
Nope, he
write
got.
down how he originated all
I
these
look
neat
back,
downs.
Marcus
Yep.
Davison, Ed Miller, they never wrote anything. Never wrote Bob Enslin. You never got an Enslin article. So, and sometimes the one that the people that wrote them were the ones you probably shouldn't be listening to. So you always have to glean that one out. The article's only good as the source, but it's a shame that a lot of those master breeders over the years didn't. That's why I like the ABA yearbooks At one time, we did have an index, and I think it went up to the 90s. But if there's all those articles now are on the our website at Wild Apricot, so we have like 800 and some articles you can get for free in PDFs that cover some of them old historical things. And I got a friend of mine I'd take feed to. He says, every day at lunch I got a half an hour, and he goes, I go read 3 articles a day off that thing. So at least somebody's going there and download. We had that database of articles. And I thought we need to do something with them, and it just gives an added member benefit to look up some of that stuff. And I know Rick's got a lot of articles in there. I believe Brenneman does too.
Yep,
Um,
they
See,
do.
and the thing with Crested Fowl, and I'm sure it's not just Crested Fowl, is most of what is passed, what we know is inherited. It's passed on. Everything I know is what Kathy taught me. My mentor, Glenn, and I know she was good friends with Westling and Joel,
yep.
and so a lot of that is passed on. There's a few things here and there written, and so when they came out with, "Hey, do you think you would be interested in helping us write a book?" It was just, no, sure.
Yeah,
It was a must. Again, in Crested
Well,
Fowl,
I
I feel
actually
like,
recommended him because Jeff and I have become pretty good friends, and we talked about this last week. But I said when he said that he was writing that, I said there's 2 people, and I said Glenn had died, but I said maybe you can get Keith and you. I said because you were the poultry historian, and I said I know you would have a lot of information for him to put in there, and like he said last week, some breeds he doesn't know. He just relies on the people that are collaborating with him, and I bought that book and I have yours, and I last week after he was on I bought the rest of the ones I didn't have. So good thing was I think we did the thing on Saturday or Sunday, and I had him on Wednesday. He's a he's a terrific shipper. He must have took that off of Amazon or something, but he got them out quick. So I was glad to see that book, and the couple new ones that he's coming with. I have an interest in one and not the other, but I'll buy them both just because I like to sit and read them and see what, like Mike said last week, to see what other people are doing. You can always you can always learn something. You're never. I learned that from working at P&G. We always had a thing called continuous improvement, so they were never happy with any of whatever they had. So you're tied now that in 2025 is nothing like the one when I retired in 2023. Is this the formulas are always changing and improving and whatever. That's their goal, and I think we got to be the same way. Too many people get complacent in what they're doing and in their routines, and we're going to do it this way, this way. That you can always do it better. So you just have to have that mentality.
no, and that's something I really enjoy about the hobby. You never know it all. You're always learning.
Yep.
yep,
How are those old English guys doing it, or the silky guys doing it,
yep.
or ladies, I guess.
Oh, there's a few guys.
Yeah. See, and for me, that's the fun part is the learning. How
Yeah,
can I apply this to my flock,
Hmm.
and I like
and
to keep things simple. I try not to,
that overthink it.
pretty much.
Yeah, but
Um,
when you're talking about going to shows, if I could interrupt you, that's the good part. Too many times you'll see people that hang only with the people with the breed they like. I mean, we get friends, they race stuff that I would never consider racing that stuff. I want nothing to do with it, but I like them. So they get something really good, and then they're kind of telling you where, you could probably find a little kernel that might help whatever your breed
Yep.
is. And you got to be as happy for them winning whatever the hell they won with whatever breed. I mean, it makes people feel good. So that's why you'll look at some of the, I know it's hard to believe, but a lot of times him and I tend to hold court at shows or at dinner. And I mean, you talk about a potpourri of people and breeds and from water, you just name it. They're all there because we all enjoy talking about our breed and then their breed. You got to listen to those
Yep.
stories too. So
I
I think it makes
laugh.
it a hell of a lot of fun.
I laugh when you say that. There's a new guy, Doug Hummel. I met him at the Congress, and he raises buttercup bantams.
Okay.
and
Don't
just
hear
in
it.
love with Buttercup Bantams. And there was a couple characters in that crew, but I just heard the other day he's raised 196 Buttercup Bantams. That might be more than is in the world. My daughter, when she's at the University of Arkansas, they had got some Buttercup and white faced black Spanish Bantams at a swap meet that go back to the old Joe Templeton lines, and those were Joe's two breeds back in the day. And he had really good ones. Well, they raised the one year, I think they raised 1,000 Buttercups, and then called them out, because they had the room and the access to free feed and all those good things. So they raised all these Buttercup and Spanish Bantams, and I think now they're everywhere. And that's just some things I think about is the new guy getting in there likes buttercups and he raised 190 of them. Well,
Go on with it.
I know there's no market for 190 buttercups, but he wants me to come down and help him sort. So I've worked with a few buttercup breeders over the years as more of like the outside opinion. It's not one I would ever have, but I know what they're supposed to look like, and so I'm curious to see what he's done with them because I'm sure they're all over the place because they do that anyways. The combs are everywhere, the colors everywhere. So
All right.
that's my buttercup story for the night.
Josh, I thank you for joining us.
Yes,
If you ever
what
want to come on again, let us know. You have, any development. You don't have to come in for a whole segment. You just want to come on and talk. That's fantastic. Let me say that from the American Band Association, the good news is we are now in editing
yes.
of our standard. Matt got it today. I got it today, and the committee members are, and we are pouring over it now, and it will not be long that the brand new copy of the ABA standard will be available for consumption. Uh,
60th
I,
anniversary.
and I
So
think I think it's really going to be nice. I think it's going to be the nicest one we've ever printed. So a lot of people are to thank, but we'll do that when it hits the stands. We'll come back on. We'll do a spiel on that. But
I think we need to get Mr. Monteith from Sarnia, Ontario on
oh
here,
yes,
and once we get to publishing and get his so Paul was a godsend to us. He come from the APA job, and then unfortunately our friend Paul Gilroy passed away suddenly, and he was the standard committee chairman, and Paul agreed to step in, and he kind of jumped right into the frying pan because we were in the middle of a revision, and he grabbed the reins and took off with it, and so hopefully with all of us looking at this, we can. I know I'm only on to page 11, and I've got 8 edits. So the good thing is with this one is one person keeps the master copy, and we have all these editors, so we don't get some of the problems that other standards have had with getting to when this thing goes to publish. It's going to be ready to when we pull the plug and say it's ready to go get printed. We're not going to have those problems that a lot of times you have afterwards. So,
See, I'm
but
looking forward to it. I want to see what those Polish are going to look
the
like.
the good thing is there's all the inactive breeds were added back in. So you used to have to request those standards. So we did some work on those and got them put back in. All the old artwork. So we had commissioned artwork that they took out a couple of revisions ago to go with the pictures. So Mike and his crew, they juried all the pictures that were in there, and the ones that they didn't think should be in there, we had removed. And then I don't know how many, 1,000 maybe, Mike, pictures you went through.
oh yeah. At least we put in. Oh, I'd have to ask Paul because I never kept track. But we put in some new pictures. Took out some old pictures and tried to make it more.
Symmetric. So
Yes, I mean, that's a good word for it. And we also have in this new one, the recent years. I'm not sure how many years we go back, truthfully, but all the champions from the ABA Nationals, mostly class champions, they're all in there.
yeah, it's kind of a
So
neat section.
yeah, so if you won, it's for posterity. It's in the book. You didn't have to, so you could go back and see what they look. It's kind of neat to do to see. Wow, that's changed a little bit, or that bird's not standing like the other bird. But we tried to get them as close as we could on the standard pictures for the standard. Now on the Hall of Champions, well, that's what the judges picked.
and
So but it's still a
it's
good rep.
also not contrived photography. So sometimes
No,
those
none.
Hall of Champions is just that's the picture we got from the winner from the show, and that's the one we run with. So
Yeah,
it's more of
yeah,
a
they're not retouched.
historical significance than it is.
Yep.
And I tell everybody these pictures and these drawings are not the word of the standard. They're a depiction, and you read the words and use that as your guideline. Don't, some people are picture based, and that's great, but um, they're not
And it
perfect. None of them are perfect. So
yeah. No, and then same. I use pictures once in a while. Can't really do it with the Houdans.
you
You
need
know,
to get the old shilling Houdans. I don't know if Dave West has them. Some the old pictures. You'd have to go back into probably before the color standards, but the old Houdan picture, I think if most people seen that, they wouldn't even recognize the type. And I don't
Oh, the
even
1970, the 1973 has it. The
I probably
1973 APA standard has it. I got it sitting here somewhere.
I
But
got
yeah,
one here I might be
that's a
able to
shilling.
get real quick because
Pardon
yeah,
this,
that,
but we have a word from our sponsor,
yeah,
Rozier Poultry Supplies. Anything you need, go to the website, www.rozierpoultrysupplies.com. Get in touch with them. They do a fantastic job. You can't get better service, even from Amazon. When they say they'll ship it, they'll ship it. If they have it, they'll send it. If they don't have it, it's something new, ask for it. And Caitlin and crew, Tim, will do what they can to find it for you, and they will be coming to shows near you. So that's my plug. Thanks. Sorry.
362. I use the index, Matt. Hey, there we go.
That's the one.
Yeah, so notice how long they are, more dorking looking than some of what you see. Um, just a different body type back then, and that's not a great big crest. Probably not. I don't know if that's a symmetrical crest or not. The male certainly isn't.
well,
And
next time, when we have more time, that's something I would like to go over is the different crest types.
yep,
Oh,
definitely. I was
let's do it. Let's do another. I mean, we could do another one whenever you have time. But we're two old retired guys. We got shit to do, but we could usually our shit can wait. We're
we
not
usually
we're
yeah
not
our shit
pounding the
we
buck.
we're great procrastinators because we always got something to do tomorrow.
That's right. We found that out. But yeah, we should go through that. Oh yeah, we could do crest height. We could do tail angles and stuff too.
Yep.
I mean, so many of them aren't right. And the back, the
An-
back is terrible on a lot of polies. Large
Another
game
one.
venom.
Tail angles, crest, and leg set. There's
Yep.
where. So you've seen those Houdans. The legs are in the middle of the bird. I see so many Polish where they're up here or back. They're yeah, out of whack. You have to have that
They
leg
don't
set.
stand. Then they don't stand correctly. You don't have the right stance on the bird. They're either jacked up one way or jacked down the other way instead of the way
Exactly.
it's supposed to be. So,
All
yeah,
right, we got lots of stuff to go with. But thanks for coming on, Josh.
appreciate
We'll,
it,
Thanks for
Josh.
having me.
Really do.
we'll
Anytime. We'll be doing this again. When your schedule allows, let us know.
he's
And
off on Thursday.
I'm
He's
on
off on.
vacation.
Yeah.
sorry, you are on vacation, aren't you? I saw that today.
Yep, I'm on
Saw your
vacation. So
post.
next time maybe we'll go over just crest in general, height,
Yep,
genetics, things like that.
Good
yep. Let's
deal.
do that. That's
All
that's a
right,
good
we're
deal.
gonna
I'm
sign
in.
out of here, and we're at an hour and 8 minutes. We're gonna have there'll be a long time on Spotify for this one. But thanks everybody for watching. And gosh, I don't know, I forgot how many people seen it on the three different we do Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube, and it's just the numbers are crazy of the people watching. So we thank everybody for doing it and keep going. And I know from all the comments Mike and I get, when are you gonna do the next one? When are you gonna do that? So we're working on it. We got some other people planned on to come. I know we want to get Matt McCammon, Rick Jandry from the Buckeye Poultry Fanciers and New Hampshire Club wants to come on. So we're gonna get some more people, and hopefully we get towards this APA election coming up in the fall. We'll get some of the candidates on too to talk with us. If they have a pair, they'll come on.
Yes.
But
Well, I know a couple of them have a pair. Let's just see if we can get them on.
yeah, there we go. All righty. Well,
So we'll
thanks
do
everybody.
that. And one reminder: 10 days, Kentucky Derby.
There we
Be
go.
there.
We won't be on that day.
We no
Bye.
guarantee you. No.
All right. I'm going to end it.
All right.